begin with a substantive scandal rocking the Trump White House. Some are calling it the Tuesday night massacre. And now tonight, Donald Trump basically confessing to improper intervention in the criminal case of his longest-serving aide, Roger Stone.
I want to thank the Justice Department for seeing this horrible thing. They saw the horribleness of a 9-year sentence for doing nothing, 9 years for doing something that nobody even can define what he did.
That is a remarkable statement. This adds to the evidence of a confession by the president. Let me tell you exactly what we know about this story. Donald Trump publicly pushed to cut the prison time for his longest-serving aide, Roger Stone. Recall, Stone was the last person arrested in the Mueller probe, walked out of his house in handcuffs, tried and convicted on several counts of obstruction, lying to Congress, and tampering with witnesses. Along the way, Mr. Stone was reprimanded for attacking the federal judge overseeing this case. Now, notice something here. The very crimes Mr. Stone was condemned for and convicted of, obstruction, lying, tampering, these are the things Donald Trump is increasingly doing right out in the open. In fact, the president just attacked this judge in the Stone case. That is the very conduct that almost got Mr. Stone thrown in jail during this trial. And I want to be clear for all the references to Mr. Stone. This story, this scandal tonight in America is larger than any single person or larger than debates over any single sentence. Stone faced a very stiff term under sentencing guidelines. And plenty of Americans, including him, can face these kind of strict sentences. And they can certainly be legitimately debated. But Mr. Stone's conviction, along with his former consulting and lobbying partner and Trump campaign manager, Paul Manafort, you remember this, they marked some of the most high-profile convictions and, yes, legal victories in the Mueller probe for offenses that Mueller detailed, which undermined the rule of law and which also overlap with something that Bob Mueller, who everyone remembers, FBI director, Republican, etc., Bob Mueller, in his report, detailed with a sledgehammer of evidence that Donald Trump himself obstructed justice. The entire point of the independent special counsel, the reason it was a big deal and it got so much news coverage and people in both parties talked about it so much, the whole point is you set one of those up to keep it entirely independent from the White House that it may have to investigate, which is what makes this now such a scandal. Donald Trump demanding lighter treatment, and now Bill Barr's Justice Department following suit in such an unusual fashion, reversing the recommended prison term for Mr. Stone after the DOJ's own prosecutor submitted to court. Now, I can tell you, as we do, we report everything here, the DOJ is still insisting tonight that it was not actually responding to Donald Trump, that it just did this. But people closest to this, they are thinking and showing otherwise. 4 prosecutors from that Mueller probe case now withdrawing, one quitting outright. One DOJ veteran telling me this is a Tuesday night massacre, all of it breaking last night. It's a reference, of course, to President Nixon's infamous attempt to undercut the independent probe into his White House. And the reference is instructive. It was such a big deal when that happened, and it blew up in real time, and they teach it in history and law schools ever more. So just imagine if 4 Mueller prosecutors suddenly quit over something like this in the middle of the Mueller probe. That would be a huge deal. But Barr's entire confirmation hearing, everything he said he would do, turned on not letting that kind of thing happen, on making assurances under oath he would respect the probe's independence and its outcomes. Which brings me to the timeline. Very important to follow here. It appears Mr. Barr has delayed these key moves well past Mueller's tenure, also past that big impeachment trial in Washington, and delayed some of it all the way up against the backdrop of this first 2020 primary, and the news still sent shockwaves across the nation.
Just moments ago, President Trump congratulated the Attorney General, Bill Barr, for intervening in the sentencing of the president's longtime friend, political advisor, his confidant, Roger Stone.
It signals to me that there has been a political infestation of the office.
It is a breakdown of the system that is like nothing I have ever seen in my career and nothing I am aware of historically.
If you look at all of this effort, it is to not just smear the Mueller campaign, it's to erase it.
Erase what Mueller did and what he prosecuted, what he convicted, and what the consequences are. So keep that point in mind, as it may also apply to Barr's effort to lighten the potential prison term for Trump aide Michael Flynn and the administration's strange removal of the top D.C. prosecutor who would oversee both these cases. She was promised a Treasury Department job that, was just eliminated all of a sudden when? Last night. So I'm reporting these facts to you to make a broader point. And if you spend time with us here on The Beat, I think you know where we're going. This is not just another Trump administration scandal or another fight over certain tactics at the Justice Department. As all the news was breaking last night, I was able to catch up with former Attorney General Eric Holder. And I want to read to you his statement in full. He says this action is aberrant and inconsistent with the Justice Department acting in a traditional non-political way. Mr. Holder continues, it, quote, disrespects the career prosecutors whom I greatly respect. Actions such as these put at risk the perceived and real neutral enforcement of our laws and ultimately endanger the fabric of our democracy. He continued in the statement he sent me last night to say those involved in the decision must be called on to explain their actions. This is a sad day for an institution to which I owe so much. And Mr. Holder, who doesn't speak out on every single thing he disagrees with in the Trump Justice Department, if he did that, I'd be reading you these statements daily. But he's not alone. Legal experts, nonpartisan experts, many aghast, outraged, and concerned. And even Trump's own allies, who, of course, famously publicly backed him in this recently resolved impeachment trial, they also feel the need to register disapproval. Senators in the Republican Party saying Trump should absolutely have stayed out of this, another noting it doesn't look right, and reiterating the standard boundary that presidents should never comment on pending federal investigations. Now, that last critique also understates exactly what Trump is accused of doing. This is not about commenting. This is about credible evidence and allegations of abusing presidential power to enforce the laws, to undercut nonpartisan law itself. And it comes at a time when many are asking just how much more our democracy can withstand. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.